Well, here we are at lesson 1. Now, you may remember this lesson when you first joined the School of Thinking, and the very first lesson you received was this lesson. Introduce myself, introduce the logic of the School of Thinking, the idea that thinking can be taught as a skill, not just what to think, but how to think, and a little bit of course, the background of the School of Thinking, our experience over the last 25 years, and some of the innovations that we've brought through in this field of teaching people to think. As you know, our lessons are sent out every day by what we call daily bread mails. Now, the daily bread mail comes from the idea, I guess, way back to my own military training, and really, whether you're doing training in the military or in the dojo, or in the ballet studio, or in the conservatorium, the sorts of skills that you want not just to know about, but to be actually able to do, to perform, really require daily training. I remember once one of our instructors at the School of Thinking in New York contacted the Juilliard School in New York and asked them to estimate how many hours of training was required for the violin, the piano, saxophone, and so on. And we did a list of them. I think the violin was 1,200 hours. Not to become a virtuoso, but to be able to play, play the violin and pick up music and be able to play. Even the guitar, I think, was 150 hours, and the mouth organ, I think, was 50 hours. Kung Fu, I think, was 600 hours. But we did a list of all the various. We were trying to show the difference between reading a book, listening to a tape, motivational tape, attending a seminar, and hearing about something, knowing about it, and the big gap between that and actually be able to do it, to perform it as a skill and get a result. This also applies, of course, in business, in selling, management, leadership, and other skills. So the focus of the School of Thinking is not contemplative thinking, sitting around chatting. That's fun, that's fine. But this is about thinking as a skill. And so there's a lot of repetition, a lot of practice. Then, of course, in each one of these lessons, we have the DFQ, the daily feedback question. Now, we've experimented, as you could imagine, over the years with a number of different ways of doing this, and there are different ways. To ask, but some kind of interactivity really does again boost the skill level. Now, in my experience in the last few years, I'd say about 15% of people actually do the daily feedback questions sort of on a regular basis. About another 15% do them from time to time or bunch them up. Maybe they're traveling, it's not necessarily convenient. About another 30% read the lessons on a regular basis and like them, they just don't do the DFQs. And then I suppose the rest do them, don't do them, unsubscribe, don't like it, or whatever. If you can do so we've reduced the DFQs to one question a day, the daily feedback question. Less than one question would be nothing. So there'd be no interactivity. And of course, more than one question just makes it too hard, too complicated, and the numbers trail off. There's a few things to notice about the DFQ. First of all, you get one every day. Secondly, the questions are open-ended. They're not the typical questions that you used to get at school, which required the teacher or the instructor to correct the answer. In other words, questions eliciting a right answer. We're not talking about right or wrong here, we're talking about thinking. So the sorts of questions might start off very, very simply, cut and paste the one sentence from this lesson that you found most interesting. The reason you do that is someone has to actually read the lesson first in order to be able to choose one sentence. And it's just a very simple way of getting them involved in the interactivity. Then as the lessons progress, the questions are a little bit more interesting, a little bit more complex, require more thinking. So they're open-ended, you think, you put your answer down, you decide what you want to say. It requires no commentary from me as an instructor or from you when you're an instructor. The other good thing that we now have, as you would have noticed on the DFQs, is that when you click on the DFQ link, you get a list of the last 10 members that have done their answer to that question. So that it completes this loop that we did, where you've got 3 people involved in the training. You've got you, the trainee. You've got me, the instructor, in this case. Although when you're an instructor, you'll be the instructor. And then you have the other trainees. And so you get a richer training experience because you're getting this 3-way thing. Instruction from me, interaction from you, and then interaction with the other trainees. And this just builds the richness of the learning experience. And you ask, the idea is to pick up one central idea, at least one central idea or important idea from each of the lessons.